I'm here outside the Pakistani Community Centre in Manchester, where Hannah Spencer has just been announced as the Green Party candidate for the Gorton and Denton by-election to replace Andrew Gwynn. She joins Jackie Pearcey of the Lib Dems and Matt Goodwin of the Reform Party on the list of candidates named so far, and she was joined by the Green Party leader Zack Polanski as she was welcomed up on stage by the cheering crowds.
Thank you very much. Before I get to business at hand, I just want to thank Asma both for that brilliant speech. And also, I hadn't planned to do this, which is never a good start, but here we go anyway. Just as I was listening to Asma, it was just making me reflect on when Asma first co-founded the Muslim Greens, and I went to an event not a million miles away from here, where I saw Asma speak for the first time. And I just realised that was it. It was the combination of our old historical roots of the Green Party and the new kind of vision of where the Green Party was going. And one of the first things Asma said was very openly that she joined the Green Party because of our stance against the genocide in Gaza, but she stayed because of our environmental policies, our social justice policies. And that right there is environmental, social, racial and economic justice. And that right there is the Green Party. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been an exciting build-up to the candidate announcement, and you're here to get involved with that. And how do you think it's going to be? What are your feelings going into this?
I mean, I think it's going to be huge. This is personal for me on several levels. I'm Mancunian, so it's a homecoming. Also, Hannah is a friend of mine, and I know how incredible she is going to be as an MP. I'm not complacent at all. I know that it's going to be tough. This race is between the Reform Party and the Green Party. And to put that bluntly, it's between our candidate, Hannah Spencer, who is a local plumber who knows the value of work, and it's between a Reform candidate who is a pundit for a far-right or right-wing TV news channel who stirs hate every single day for a living. It's between Hannah, who understands the power of grassroots community and connectivity and bringing people together, and it's against a party who seek to divide people. So it is going to be a tough race, and we're going to have to make sure that we're on every single doorstep we can, having every single conversation we can. But I'm absolutely confident that the more people hear from Hannah Spencer from the Green Party, the more they're going to be ready to vote Green.
And then you're the leader of the Green Party, obviously. The leader of the Reform Party came earlier this morning as well to announce their candidate. And the other big parties, shall we call them big parties for the moment, they've not brought their leader down. What does that say to you?
Well, Labour have absolutely blown this. They took people's votes for granted, not just in Gorton and Denton, but right across the country. And people can really send them a message in this election by voting Green, ultimately to say we're not happy about the measures that they've been taking. So many people feel like they're running just to keep up. Rent's up, water bills are up. They dread opening their next energy bill, and it doesn't need to be this way. And actually, you don't need to take my word for this. We've had Labour advisors on record saying that they know they have blown this election already. So the only people who can stop the Reform Party in Manchester in this election are the Green Party. It's important to say, though, this isn't just about stopping reform. This is about a more hopeful vision for Gorton and Denton. This is about making sure we're protecting our National Health Service, rebuilding our public services, and actually giving people hope again. In Hannah Spencer, there's someone who's from this area who knows that, both to listen to people in this area and what people in this area need. And I think that's exciting for politics. It feels different, it feels fresh, and I think it's going to make a huge change in Westminster.
And then I want to take you a bit more locally, because you're kind of pushing Hannah as the local candidate. But when I've covered local elections, particularly around the East Manchester area, Greens haven't been particularly successful. There hasn't been a huge amount of effort put in almost to elections. When I've spoken to one candidate, they said we're just here as an option. Are we going to see after this a bit more of a serious push for Greater Manchester from the Greens?
Well, we're seeing that right across the country, actually, and Greater Manchester is no exception. Since I was elected a few months ago, we've tripled our membership figures. We now have 190,000 members, and we've tripled in the polls. In fact, we had a record high poll last night of 19%. And so this really makes a difference, both in terms of the amount of people who can be on the ground, the amount of money a party can have, because we don't take money from oil and gas donors or dodgy donors. We're funded by our members and regular donations. And so we have had capacity issues in the past. It's been difficult as a relatively smaller party to be everywhere. But actually, as the party has grown, we're seeing people more and more out on the ground. And that's also resulting in more and more elections won. So actually, let's focus on this constituency for the next 28 days, get Hannah Spencer elected and send her to Parliament. And then actually, we're going to be ready for May's elections too.
And then during the Q&A, I got the feeling that there was a bit of, it was almost being brought into the case of being Israel versus Palestine as well in this. And how can you talk to that a bit more, and why do you think that is an important topic in this by-election?
Well, I think Palestine is a huge issue for anyone who cares about the world. We've seen an ongoing genocide that our government has not just been complicit in, but has actively been arming, both in terms of the selling of arms and the sharing of intelligence. And it's absolutely really important that we end the genocide. We can both talk about the genocide in Gaza at the same time as talking about the issues that matter to people on the ground on their day-to-day, which I've spoken about in this interview, being lowering people's bills, defending the National Health Service, and rebuilding our public services more generally. We can do more than one thing at once. And what I would say, because the Labour Party have attacked me several times, including with allegations of anti-Semitism around the party, I'm one of 5 Jewish people who have led a British political party, so I take anti-Semitism really seriously. You can and absolutely must condemn anti-Semitism at the same time as show solidarity to the Palestinian people. Those two things are not in conflict, and if anyone tries to say they are, they're being dishonest.
And then just lastly, obviously we had a Greater Manchester Mayor who fancied candidacy for this. How do you think the election would have gone if he was allowed to stand?
I think it would have been tougher for us, and I think we still would have won. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Andy Burnham is without a doubt more progressive than Keir Starmer or many of the cabinet. Having said that though, he's still a Labour politician. He has still stood by while the Labour government tried to slash people's disability benefits, but was shamed into not doing it, into abolishing the 2-child benefit cap, but eventually it took over 18 months to do that, and the genocide that we've just been speaking about. And so whilst I have more time for Andy Burnham than I have for lots of Labour politicians, he is still a Labour politician. And actually, if people want the opposite of these things, then they need to vote Green and they need to vote for Hannah Spencer.
You've announced yourself as the local candidate, but the Greens have had successes in Wythenshawe and Hale. That's a very different demographic to what we've got in Gorton and Denton. So how can you appeal to the people and the electorate here?
I think this is a really diverse constituency. Every little bit of it is different, and that's what makes it so brilliant. I lived here in the years that I was becoming political without really realising that that's what was happening to me. And I know that throughout the constituency and throughout the places in Greater Manchester where we have other Greens, they may look a bit different, they may feel a bit different when you're there, but the social values of people are very similar, that people, whether you've got a lot or you've got not much at all, just want a better life.
And what would you say your 3 key policies are?
I want to tackle inequality. I think we see that across the city region. We're a city that's got one of the fastest growing economies, and yet we've also got some of the worst rates of poverty. We've got the worst rates of fuel poverty. We've got pensioners that can't heat their homes. We've got children who can't have school uniforms, let alone dream about going on a holiday. I want to think more broadly about the lack of representation of us in Parliament. I speak very strongly about that. As soon as I became a local councillor, I realised that there's very few people like me in the room where decisions are being made. That has to change, because like we saw during COVID, we saw decisions that were being made by people who are not from the backgrounds that most of us are from, and I think that is what has led to continuous years of policies that have failed the vast majority of people.
Yeah, and then you've talked about being a councillor for Trafford Council, obviously. What are your thoughts on big kind of controversial green policies, well, or anti-green policies, you could argue? It's like places for everyone. What is your stance and what's the party's stance on something like that?
Yeah, so we challenged that a lot. It was quite disappointing really to see that sort of forced onto a city region, and a lot of us were just stuck. It was just rolled out without much scrutiny. I think what we see is a real lack of democracy across Greater Manchester. Something that I've argued consistently for years is a way of holding the mayor accountable, because we do not have that. In London, we have the London Assembly where different politicians can sit, like Zack, and scrutinise the mayor, and we don't have that here in Greater Manchester. So it means that a Labour mayor is just answerable to his Labour council leaders, and that is why you end up with really failed policies like Places for Everyone.
Okay, and so is that something that you're going to be fighting on if you were to be elected?
Yeah, I want to make the need for housing, but it has to be housing that suits the needs of the people here. So it's got to be homes in the right place, built to a high quality and at the right price.
And where would you have it if you couldn't do it on these
sites? We need
sites?
to look at brownfield sites. We need to look at the office blocks that aren't being used. There are some great examples across Manchester of commercial spaces being turned into really high quality housing. You do tend to see that in more expensive areas, and I don't want that to be the preserve of the richest people in the city. I think we can have that in every bit of Manchester.